Hello Summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Christoph and today we are super excited because Riot has just hinted to us that they'll be releasing some new champions alongside 3 reworks coming in the very near future. We're going to tell you guys everything you need to know about what's going on, whether or not you've missed the news. And for our question of the day, which champion or rework are you most excited for? I am stoked for the Volibear changes. I really want to see this guy develop a new sense of identity and see what he's capable of once his rework is finished. And as always, before we get started, if you guys want to get better at League of Legends, if you are having trouble in your placement games, or if you didn't get into the rank that you believe you deserve, then go to ProGuides.com and find your challenger coach right now who will help you out and get you better at League of Legends. On ProGuides, if you're looking for tier list champion guides, coaching, or courses from your favorite pro players, ProGuides has it all. So what are you waiting for? Click the link below and start improving right now. So let's kick off this video by talking about the 2 new champions. In Riot's recent dev video, they were pretty elusive and gave us very fragmented pieces of information. The only concrete bits that they gave us were that there were indeed 2 champions they're excited to release soon. Regarding their designs and identities, we've only been told the following. One of them is going to be released in the summer, where the game will blossom with a new jungler to fawn over. The second champion is going to be a masked champion who refuses to die. Let's actually talk about the second champion first. Again, what we've been told isn't much, but it's definitely promising, and there's a lot of speculation. Okay, the first new champion. One thing that the developers talked extensively about is the player base's feedback to recent releases. League of Legends and Runeterra have a deep, drawn-out storyline with characters being mentioned throughout its rich history. Senna's release was partially in celebration of Riot's 10-year anniversary, as well as a way to determine how players would feel about seeing a champion we had only heard about from lore. Overall, since Senna's reception has been well received, we've also been told that Riot plans to do this again in a release in the near future. I am honestly so hyped for this, and we can only really speculate who it's going to be at the moment. A hint that was given to us was that some demons should remain in our past. A lot of players as well as fans of the Runeterra universe speculate that this might be Yasuo's brother, Yone, hitting the rift. It definitely makes sense as they talked extensively about allowing Senna to materialize as a champion rather than being a part of the lore. Naturally, since Yone is a pretty significant part of the lore, it's definitely possible that he's the fear-striking champion that is being teased. Another piece of evidence that supports this is the fact that Yone exists as a card in one of Riot's other games, Legends of Runeterra. The fact that they've gone so far to create artwork for him, voice him, and even consider adding him to that game means that there might be more to come. Even if it turns out that he's not the specific champion that's being hinted at, we wouldn't be surprised if he ended up finding his way onto Summoner's Rift sometime in the near future. The other champion that Riot talked about was a jungler. Thematically, it's likely that this champion is going to be about nature or flowers or something like that, as that was hinted as part of their design. When mentioned, we were only told that this champion would blossom, likely indicating a type of spring or summer bloom. They said that they weren't sure if they wanted a teamfight-focused bruiser or an agile assassin. I don't know how well an agile assassin blossom nature-y character would look like, but knowing Riot, the fact that they even mentioned these 2 possibilities could signal that they're going to take another risk and attempt to pioneer something new. I'm going to guess that they're going to develop a champion that can be both. Sure, they've tried it before, but it seems like most champions eventually level out to one or the other. I think it's absolutely possible to make a champion who can act as both a bruiser and an assassin. Take Kayn, for example, who can approach 2 very different builds depending on which transformation he takes. There are many other champions planned for future release, but the only thing we do know is that they're coming. We'll receive more information on them later into the year. With the new champions out of the way, let's talk about some of the reworks that are coming our way. Before we do though, know that everything is still in the works and anything can change before it hits the live servers. First up, let's talk about Wukong. Again and again, we keep hearing about these reworks coming his way, but Riot is slowly closing in on their final product. First up, let's talk about the goals Riot had in mind with the changes they have lined up for Wukong. They're trying to shift his power away from the late game and put more into his early game. Secondly, they want to give players the tools they need to feel competitively viable in both the laning phase and jungling early on. Finally, the ultimate goal is to give Wukong more of an identity as a trickster who can outplay his opponents with hit-and-run gameplay patterns. His passive is seeing a major change. Rather than providing bonus resistances based on enemy champions near him, Wukong now has a much more usable passive. For 3 seconds after exiting a brush or stealth, Wukong will gain a physical damage shield equal to 12% of his maximum health. This gives Wukong many more windows to look for trades. Beforehand, it felt more like a stat check. If Wukong was strong, then he won. If he wasn't, then he lost. Having the shield provides more windows of power for Wukong to utilize, and he can even gain 2 shields during certain trades, one from the brush and the other when using his own stealth. This should help out Wukong's early game significantly and allow him to contest the lane in many more matchups than before. The reason they've shifted away from his old passive is that it provided a lot of underappreciated power in late-game teamfights. When he jumps into 5 enemies, he would get a lot more tanky than people would have expected, allowing him to survive a little bit longer in spite of building glass cannon. His Q is having its cooldown reduced, mana cost lowered, and having its ratio changed. In basically any scenario, this should increase Wukong's damage output. The other buffs to Q will give him more opportunities to farm with it in lane and also make it much more spammable during the early game. Essentially, this ability is his bread and butter, and these changes should enable Wukong to use it more liberally. Next up is a pretty big change to his W. While the stealth component is remaining, rather than blinking a short distance, Wukong will now dash a set distance toward the player's cursor. However, this won't let him jump over any walls. A big change is going to be the clone he leaves behind. It'll now act as a stationary champion that attacks the last targeted enemy. Additionally, this clone will deal a percentage of Wukong's damage, scaling up to 100% when maxed out, applying on-hit effects at the cost of not being able to critically strike. In return, the cooldown is being increased and the stealth duration shortened. Overall, this is still a huge buff to the ability, and it'll bump up Wukong's damage output, and the mini dash it provides should give Wukong players more tools to outplay their opponents. You could even use this ability defensively to escape or dodge crucial abilities. The only change to Wukong's E is that it'll deal magic damage instead of physical damage. This should make him stronger in the early game since it'll be harder to itemize against him, but nerf his late game, as he'll likely have more lethality or armor penetration by then. It's worth noting that it'll likely be a buff in games where you have 5 champions that deal physical damage. The ratios are staying the same, and the ability will still scale based off of attack damage in spite of dealing magic damage. Okay, now on to Wukong's ultimate. Well, it looks like Wukong's R is going to get the Garen treatment. It's going to tick every quarter of a second instead of every half, and also grant Conqueror stacks. Of course, this means that the damage is being halved since it'll tick twice as fast. The damage ratio is being increased, the bonus movement speed is flat instead of ramping up, and he'll retain the bonus attack speed from his E while using his ultimate. These changes should steer Wukong towards more of a bruisery role, as he's a lot more inclined to use his ultimate aggressively, similar to how Garen uses his spin. Overall, I'd say his power level honestly will spike upwards as a result of all these changes, and I'm pretty excited for the Monkey King. Fiddlesticks is next and is set for a visual gameplay rework. He's also set to now have thematics centered around fear, both mechanically and psychologically. The ultimate goal is to create the scariest champion in League of Legends. What's in store is a kit that allows Fiddlesticks to have more ways to ambush his foes or create opportunities to just be really scary. Something we actually know a lot about is the new voiceover. Fiddlesticks is an inhuman entity representing total fear. The only idea of a voice he has is from the innocent lives of humans he's collected over his existence. Ultimately, his voice looks like it's going in the direction of being a crude imitation of the humans he's killed. In terms of his abilities, his point-and-click fear is set to stay, and his ultimate looks the same aside from some serious polishings. It looks a lot better aesthetically, and it really fits the theme of a death-crazed demon. He was kind of goofy before, but now he's honestly quite terrifying. His ultimate is actually going to look a lot better, similar to the treatment that Lux got recently with her ultimate aesthetic changes as well. It's still uncertain what his other abilities are, but it sounds like they're going to play around tricking opponents or utilizing the Fog of War to scare his opponents. While the two abilities that he does have remaining in his kit are pretty annoying to play against, they admittedly are pretty good additions to the game. Fiddlesticks will remain a solid pick against mobile champions, and his ultimate will continue to force players to heavily emphasize good vision control and expecting game-changing flanks. I personally believe this silence is pretty frustrating to play with and doesn't bring too much to the table. While having his silence is great for Fiddlesticks, hopefully this rework will give him more skill expression and ways to influence the game. But let's be honest, his visuals needed an update, and I'm finally excited for Fiddlesticks to actually be cool so we can cosplay him next Halloween. Okay, let's talk about the other rework that was voted on to wrap it up. Initially, the developers approached Volibear with demonic themes, turning him into a savage bear instead of a cute, fluffy bear. Let's admit it, he's pretty adorable right now. However, the development team have felt that the direction simply didn't stay true enough to the current Volibear. The development team does plan to complete this concept to an extent. Good news for us all, once Riot launches Volibear VGU, anyone who owns him or that picks him up during his rework launch patch is going to receive this more demonic-themed Volibear as a skin. After a certain amount of time, this themed skin will hit the shop as any other skin would. This isn't something Riot plans to do for other VGUs, but they've stated that it felt like the right decision for this particular one. Volibear has been a pretty big challenge for Riot to retune. He's currently not in the best place because he's so simple and one-dimensional. On the bright side though, he does deal pretty good damage, so hopefully that stays. However, we're hoping that Volibear sees some changes to his current lackluster kit. He basically just runs at you, hopes that he catches you, and tries to kill you. During the early stages, there were some experiments with the concept of a Thunder Bear that could not be stopped. Instead of being hit by CC, he would only be slowed down as he continued to run at you. It was noted that this was surprisingly balanced, but Riot since pivoted from this concept, so we'll likely instead see a set of abilities centered around the idea of using thunder. After these two complete reworks, Riot plans to focus primarily on new champions for Season 2020. We should expect to see Volibear and Fiddlesticks hit the Rift soon. Afterwards, we can look forward to seeing who the masked champion and the new jungler are. Alright guys, that concludes our video. Thank you guys again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or comment down below. Our aim is to give you guys the best content out there and keep you guys up to date with what is going on. Make sure to check out ProGuides.com as well as our YouTube channel for more informational content to help you guys improve. I hope you guys are doing well in your early season climbs. That's it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck in your next few games, and we'll see you on the Rift.